Okay. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order at 10:02 on June 14th, 2023. Again, I want to remind everybody to sign in online. Daryl was kind enough to put that link in the chat. So please make sure that you sign in so we have a good count of everybody who was here. And if we're ready to move forward, we can start with Tracy Dillow with the issue tracker updates. Tracy, are you ready for that?
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
It looks like we have a couple on there that are ongoing. The first one I would like to ask for some help from either Montrose or the Grand Junction PSAPs or anyone else. This is kind of the one where you guys were getting phone calls and the PSAP couldn't hear the caller. We talked about this, I think, clear back in the March-April timeframe, and we haven't gotten any recent calls into our NOC, and I haven't heard anything. So for this one, I guess I'm trying to find out, is it still happening? Has it slowed down? Did you possibly reach out to the NOC and they neglected to share that with the team? I don't really know where we should be at with this one.
Okay, do we have anybody on from that area that can answer that question for Tracy?
I am Cindy Castile, and I was here during this time along with Jennifer Kirkland. And I have not heard of any additional calls that we've had problems with coming in where we couldn't hear the person. Just the initial ones that we got, that we reported.
Okay.
This is Matt from Montrose, and we've not had any repeat calls like this from our PSAP either.
Okay. And it looks like Grand Junction and Montrose were the primary ones reporting the problem. Do you guys want us to leave this as something outstanding, or since it hasn't happened before or since then, can we move it to the closed and you would then, reach out directly to our NOC if we see it again? We kicked this off back in February, so I don't know if we want to keep it up here or just move it down to the bottom. That would be up to you guys.
For Montrose, I think it would be reasonable to move it to closed.
Okay.
I would have to agree with Grand Junction also.
Okay. And absolutely, you guys, if it comes up again, even if it's one time, we want to know that it's, taking place, and our NOC and Intrado can work together to figure out what's going on. But I will go ahead and move that one down. The Pitkin and Vale, that's a change to call routing. That's been on here a while as well. It kind of came to a standstill between the PSAPs and Motorola. So I haven't heard any updates on this one either, just that we're pending a scheduled migration with Motorola. So when the PSAPs and Motorola are available, Lumen and Intrado will jump on a call as well. This is where they are wanting to change the way the calls are routed for those two counties. We can do it. It's a project with Intrado, and we're just kind of standing down until they let us know that they're ready to move forward. I don't know if anyone from Pitkin or Vale is on and has more information that you might have received from Motorola that we did not. If so, and you want to share, that would be great.
I am not seeing anybody on from either one of those. Sorry.
And I'm going to keep this one on here. Like I said, Lumen and Intrado are kind of at the mercy of Motorola and their schedules. So let's leave it on here because I have not been told that they don't want to migrate. Was there a question? Thought I heard it.
Beth Dobransky said, I don't have any information, but I will check with Mark Wentworth. That's from Vale.
Okay, excellent. Like I said, we will jump on as soon as all the parties are ready for us to jump on and move forward with that one. The third one, this is new, and I want to kind of shout out to see if Matt might be on the call. This came to mine and Andrew's attention, I think, last week, where there were some 911 calls that were coming in, and the callback number started with an area code of 911. Basically, the question to Lumen was to investigate kind of what was going on. I reached out to the Intrado team, and Kim was excellent at getting back with us. she did go through and look up several of the calls in question. And what came back to us, unfortunately, some of the calls that she checked out were still using the ComNet 3G network platform. Some also came back as being the femtocell VoLTE, or as we all know, the 4G network. And there were problems with the carriers and how they were set up. There wasn't anything on these particular examples that were within the Lumen or Intrado network to fix. Something that we need to reach out, or the PSAPs need to reach out to the carriers for. And if Matt happens, to be on, probably have some more information. I don't know if Intrado has additional information they want to share either, but Kim did assist us on this one.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we're kind of, this is Matt with Montrose. We're kind of revisiting an issue that Kimberly at LIDA had pointed out previously.
Yeah.
We started getting more and more reports from our staff, and so we went through every PNE in every shell record in our MSEG and pulled this, and about 17% of our calls are coming in with this 911 NPA or area code instead of the callback number. And of course, this is concerning if we can't get them to verbalize their location and we lose the call. So we just wanted to point this out. 17% is a lot.
It is.
And we're imagining that we're not the only ones that are having this problem, in addition to LIDA and their PSAPs. We figured it probably was not a Lumen and Intrado issue, and this, so thank you for the confirmation that it's really on the carrier side, but we put this out there maybe for everybody else to take a look at.
Yeah, and I think it's important too, if you guys do come across those, do send them to myself and Andrew, and we'll work with Intrado, because we want to make sure, right, that it's not something we have control over. We can reach out to the wireless carriers. I know in some cases, Kimberly has better contacts than Lumen does, and perhaps Intrado. We can notify them of issues. We can open tickets and report the issues, but we don't have the power, if you will, to force them to make any changes.
Hey, Matt, this is Rich Johnston. I missed one part of that. For those 17% that are coming off with the bad Annies, is address also not being displayed? Because sometimes in those cases, the address and even good phase 2 information will come across. It's just the Annie.
I believe everything is okay except the CBN.
Okay, and that's some, again, just coming from the wireless side of the house way back when.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like they're having some issues with those old networks, but I mean the good news is that it was designed as at least it should get the location information, so that's good. I was just curious. Sorry to take us off track.
No, it's a good question, and thinking back from Kimberly's early research, and she dug very deeply into this, and would be better suited to speak about it. But it sounds like much of this might be related to sunsetting of 3G service and roaming agreements that are old roaming agreements that enabled the passing of the CBN, but current roaming agreements don't, or something of that nature.
Okay.
Daryl, you raise your hand.
Curiosity got me there, so thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I'm on a mobile hotspot because our internet's out. So if you lose me, that's what happened. I apologize. I also checked in with NASNA when I've done this a couple times. When Kimberly first told me about it, when Matt told me that he was continuing to have problems with callback numbers not, and other states are seeing this as well. I know that the state of Kentucky even reached out to the FCC to talk to them about it to see if there was anything that could be done from their level, and I don't think we've heard anything from the FCC back. I do have an opportunity this weekend at the NASNA meeting to talk to someone from the FCC's public safety and Homeland Security Bureau. So I will bring this up with them and see if at least this is on their radar and if they intend to do anything to address it.
Okay, thank you. Kim, go ahead.
So Daryl, when you're having that conversation, I think our biggest ask here is for carriers to be required or highly encouraged to pass data when roaming occurs. So right now they are required by FCC to process a call on their network when somebody dials 911, but they are not required to pass any data. And so if the FCC, Homeland Security, whomever wants to make that small little change and do a NOPR in this area, I think they would definitely get a lot of support from the 911 community across the nation. We have real life issues that we can show how 911 calls have been delayed. And even though the majority may be one particular carrier, it's not truly that carrier's processing the roaming of the call. It's just the fact that the data isn't flowing with it. And the data meaning the callback number. So it's just it should be pretty simple, and it can be done through a box being checked by most carriers. It's just they're not required to do it, so they're not doing it.
Understood. Yeah, that is the issue. And I think it just seems common sense to me that when it comes to 911 calls, the roaming agreement should be automatic, that they have to provide the data that goes with the 911 call. And I think, the Homeland Security Bureau will agree that the question is, what will they have to do to fix it? Will it take a full NOPR, or is there something else they can do that won't take as long to accomplish? So I'll talk to them about that, and I'll let you guys know what I find out.
Thanks, Daryl. That would be great.
Yep. Thank you, Daryl. Any other comments, questions about these calls with no CBN? Okay. Can probably move forward.
Okay. So the only other ask for the tracker is a shout out to the team as a whole. Has anything new come up that you need to bring to our attention? I know we did not have a call last month, so I just want to make sure that there isn't anything we need to add to the tracker.
Anybody have anything that needs to be added?
Well, Tracy, one thing you didn't mention was the 911 transfer across state lines. I know you've got there that it's on hold pending completion of the migration project. Now that we're down to really 2 PSAPs, and they're both military PSAPs, and I don't know when or if they will actually migrate. I'm wondering if that's something that we can kind of put higher on the radar.
I think we can. That's something too that we would pull, our operations team into, as well as our salesman. Wes was kind of running with this on the back burner, and we now have Jeff who has stepped into that role. So we definitely can start the conversations up about it again. I don't want to put Jeff on the spot because I don't think he has any of the history on it yet.
Tracy, you and I can touch base offline to be able to get me up to speed.
Yep, that would be great. It's
Okay.
just a matter of being able to transfer calls again, across state lines. A big one that was hot for a lot of people was really between Colorado and Wyoming, because there's a lot that happens between that open space.
And since I brought it up, can you give us any sort of update on the 2 military PSAPs?
They are the same as they have been the last couple of months. I can check with Nancy when we get off the call, but usually every 2 weeks she sends an email and she's not getting responses.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Matt, it looked like you were going to say something. Did you have something you wanted to add?
No, thank you.
Okay, not a problem.
It was a pretend hand raise.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, if you have something else come up, like I said, don't wait until the next meeting. Certainly let myself know, or let Jeff know, or anybody on the Lumen team, and we'll get it added to the tracker and get some resolution for you.
Sounds good, Tracy. Thanks.
Right. Our good old metrics review for the month. Again, I'm happy to report there is not anything exciting. The completion codes are on that first slide that we're looking at. This basically is just showing you that each probe is called every 7 seconds, making sure that network availability is there, and things on this slide look exactly like we had hoped they would, or on this chart, sorry. We also go to the MOS by PSAP. This is our voice quality metric that we report on. Everything that you can see is above the tracking of 4. We know that the higher the number, the better. So we're happy to see what is on this side. We talk about the same MOS, but this is by the ECMC. Again, this is the Denver-Miami connection. Anytime we see anything below a 3.5, it would be a trigger to my NOC to dive into it and see what might be happening. But this is, again, everything above that number 4 mark. So we're happy to have those numbers in place. Looking at packet loss, this we have a couple of them that went just right at the 0.03, but the tariff is anything at 0.5, less or equal to 0.5. So I did this morning send some quick note over to Carl just to see if there was some reason, because it looks like, you know, consistently there were 4 times that we got a little higher than normal. And I just wanted to see if they had any information as to why. I haven't heard back, but I'm sure I will later today. And I can shoot an email to Kathy and Daryl so that it can be shared.
Tracy, I'm sorry, this is Rich again. Did you say that the tariffs has it at 0.5? Is that correct?
Yes, less or equal to 0.5.
So we're still less than 1/10 of that, because this
Yep.
is 0.0. Yeah, okay. All right. I just want to get a feel. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's what the tariff says is 0.5%. So I don't know if the numbers here on this that we're seeing, I'm assuming those represent percent.
Percentages, yes.
Okay, so when it says 0.04, that means 0.04%, not 4%.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, you're still well within the tariff range if that's the case.
Right.
Yeah.
I just was kind of curious in looking at it. It seems like the same time each week it jumped a little bit, and I don't know the answer to that. So just my curiosity, I wanted to find out why.
Could it be? Do we know what day of the week that is? It looks like maybe Friday or Saturday. Maybe it's just more traffic on the network.
Yeah. And I can make it larger or go back into the tool and I can get the exact date and find out, but it very well could just be more traffic, a weekend, busier time.
I think the good news, to take away from that is we are well within, we're comfortable with that number. It's still good. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, believe me, we know the second that there's something that's triggered by the NOC, because everyone is pulled in to see what is happening. So it's still nothing concerning other than curiosity that Cindy and I had, wondering why it looked to be the same day each week. The final graph that we pull for you guys is based on jitter. Again, we measure in microseconds. The tariff calls for milliseconds, but we wouldn't be able to see anything on this chart. It has to be less than or equal to 20. So as you can tell, we're doing just fine.
Yeah, these bars would have to reach 20,000 on this chart in order to be out of range.
So that is all we have as far as our metrics performance data for the month.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Anyone have any questions for Tracy on that? I'll take that as a no. Yeah, I was looking at that, Daryl. We probably can remove that.
Meant to.
Yeah. For old business, we have, the tariff amendment filing, ECATs, that is pretty much completed. Unless Tim has something that he wants to update on, I think we can move on to the next item. Tracy, go ahead.
I was just curious if there's a deployment schedule available for rolling out ECAT.
I can talk to that. This is Jeff Winkleman. We're in the process of finalizing that schedule that we'll send over to Daryl and Jennifer, and then they'll be able to disseminate the information we're sending out. But it will be, I was going to say close to what the ESInet deployment was, but there is some changes to that. But I'm expecting to see a finalization of that this week.
Yeah, our meeting is actually on Thursday, so tomorrow with Intrado to talk through the project.
All right. Thank you, Jeff and Tracy. Kim, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
So Jeff, Tracy, Lita did ask Tim Kunkelman for consideration of having Lita on the front end of the project deployment for ECATS due to our CPE upgrade with Intrado. So if you could take that in consideration as you build the schedule, we would appreciate it.
No problem, Kim.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Next, we have B, and that's actually Daryl.
I don't believe that I've received, let me double check. I don't believe I've received any more reports of knock issues. There was one related to a 911 outage investigation. Oh, where did I go with that? It's under, sorry, my many nested folders here. Knock issues tracker. Yeah, the last one I have entered into the issues tracker that I had was back in February. So just as a reminder, if anybody has issues with the knock, we were having some fairly regular issues with long hold times and other problems with the network operations center. So we started tracking those. If you have any, let me know, because I will track them here, but I will also pass them along to the knock supervisor for CenturyLink so that he's aware and can hopefully make adjustments. But it looks like things might be going a little better now, unless somebody has anything to report now.
Doesn't sound like it, Daryl. Okay, item C. Jennifer, not sure if you have any update on this or somebody from that area for calls presenting to the PSAP on Rapid SOS, but not on the CPE. I think, if I recall correctly, and Jennifer, correct me, I think that this is something that is going to happen. We just need to be aware of it. Is that correct, Jennifer?
Yeah, I had it on the agenda from the last meeting just to make everybody aware. I don't think there's any action that needs to be taken or could be taken. I just wanted PSAPs to be aware that that was going to happen and to have a plan.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate
You're
that. Next, item D with Jeff Winkleman, volume-based call routing.
I touched on that. I think it wasn't the last meeting because we didn't have it, but the last time we talked about this, it was the discussion about the ability to be able to change that. So we presented the information. It was just kind of open for discussion at that point, I believe.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that?
So I guess, Jeff, the question I have is this something that PSAPs can request now?
Yes, to my understanding, it is. Rich, you might be able to touch on that a little bit more, but we were investigating that initially, I believe, with Grand Junction, but we haven't gone any further with that at this time.
Can we, I apologize. Can we go over the exact scenario?
Sure.
I can guess what it is, but I don't want to guess.
The request that came to us was, are we able to change basically the default routing as far as the overflow scenarios, depending on the abandonment situation? And at that time, when we got into it, we found out that we were able to designate multiple locations,
Yep.
not necessarily in a round robin, but it would spread it equally amongst those locations that were designated. So my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Rich, is that they just need to put the request in, we fill out proper forms, and we can get it configured properly.
Yep, that's correct. So, yeah, you're 100% correct. So we can put them in kind of a serial nature, which is, I guess, the default setting, right? You have it default to PSAP A. When PSAP A is busy, you go to B. When that's busy, you go to C. That's normal. Or you can do this volume distribution, which again it's an algorithm that over time will balance the traffic over a set amount of PSAPs. As we get into GIS-based routing, there are other options. So you can do it based on GIS in the future once we get there.
So I guess to put a bow on that is, if anybody's interested in that, go ahead and reach out. Let us know. We can start the discussions and let you know what would be required to make that happen.
Okay, should they reach out to you?
Yes, go ahead and start with myself.
Okay, great. Joe, I see you raise your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm there's no charge for that option.
Not that I'm aware of. Richard, Tracy, you can chime in on that, but my understanding.
Yeah, nothing
Right.
from the Entrada side. That's just
Yeah, we
provisioning
wouldn't
and
pass anything.
so.
Okay, and is Daryl, is that something that should be in a tariff? Those options?
I don't know if it needs to be in the tariff. It's just part of the application and the standard services. I don't know if we put every single feature and function in the tariff. And the reason why I'm pushing back a little bit, because if we do that, then the tariff is gonna be giant with every single thing that our system can do. I guess that's my only worry. If we add that, then we're gonna have to add 1,000 other things.
Is there a user guide that's available to the PSAPs that lets them know what all these different options may be? And then is that something might be referenced in the tariff?
I'm pretty sure Daryl had put the documentation we sent over to him on the website. I'm looking through the resources now.
I'm looking to. I know I did
Okay.
put it in, but I can't remember what it was called.
Thank
Well,
you.
while you guys are looking, Matt raised his hand. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you. And Jeff and company, thanks for the confirmation on this. This is definitely on our radar for Montrose, probably for Grand Junction as well in the future. Joe, Joe Banker, when you're asking about a user guide, do you mean from a larger perspective and not just with respect to volume-based routing?
Yeah, the comment was made that there are all sorts of features that are available, options that are available, and so we'd have a huge tariff. And so my thought was, if all of those options are available, the PSAP should have the opportunity to review those and see what would be useful for them.
I can look into that. I know we have a user guide for our what I call it is our customer management portal. I'm not sure if that portal itself is turned on for the state of Colorado yet, but it is accessible through that portal today. Let me do some research. This is Rich. See, we come every time we do a new release, we come out with a new user guide. So I think it's very possible that we could attach. I mean, this is more of a Lumen and a Tim question, but to say, hey, for more information, look at the most recent, A911 user guide. We could do that because we produce those every time we have a new release, and they are typically available to the customer. So I don't see any issue with that. But we'll talk internally, Entrada and Lumen, and make sure it's in good shape.
Thank you, Rich.
So the document is on the screen right now. That's available if you go to the ESInet users group page on the task force website and go to resources. And it is, I can scroll down, is right here, PSAP busy volume distribution routing 6120.
And I put that link in the chat.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, and my question was about the broader list of options that there might be a PSAP out there thinking, gee, it'd be great if we could do this. And they just don't know it.
Sure. I would recommend if a PSAP wants to do something, or if we do get the user guide out there, that you bring in a Lumen and Entrado representative to talk about it. It's complicated. There's a lot of dependencies and things like that. But I think it's a good start to look at the user guide, and then if that stirs some interest about something, then pull in your Lumen and Entrado representative, and then we can go into more detail of how it's deployed and when it's beneficial and that sort of thing.
And I'll just second that for Joe. I think a user manual that the PSAPs can refer to that says everything that the ESInet can do, that they just have to ask for, I think that would be extremely helpful to the PSAPs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's a good idea.
Now, just to kind of point out some things, I know we're getting with the tariff to turn on GIS routing and I3 and things like that. So we're getting there, which is awesome and exciting. The user guide may indicate things like that, which maybe, although it's a feature functionality of the system, the state of Colorado hasn't turned it up yet. So that's where some grayness could come in and some questions and misunderstandings. But I think it's better to get it out there than not, and have those discussions than not have this documentation.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Rich. Thank you. Okay, any other questions about that item? And again, Jeff put a link in the chat, and Daryl has pointed out where that documentation is or can be found.
Do we need to revisit this again next month, or should I take it off?
I think we can take it off. Okay, the next item actually is getting pulled out from the parking lot. I was having a conversation with Daryl, and we started talking about geospatial call routing, which prompted both of us to agree that we need to bring this out of the parking lot and start having a conversation about how we're going to move forward with this. So that conversation entailed myself, Daryl, Matt, and Jennifer was on it, and some other people, but I'll go ahead and let Daryl speak to this, and then Matt and Jennifer, if they have anything to add as well.
Sure. So now that the ECATS amendment to the tariff has been completed, obviously there's still deployment and implementation to take place, but I didn't want to necessarily wait until that full deployment is done before this group, the ESInet users group, starts talking about what next step it wants to take with the ESInet. And geospatial routing, I think, is one of the foundational components of Next Generation 911. It's one of the things that makes an ESInet Next Generation 911, which we're not there yet. So I wanted to make sure that that conversation didn't stall out. So Kathy and I and Danette and Matt Cage as the chair of the GIS committee, and Jennifer as the new 911 program manager, which I want to talk about a little bit later, got together with Jeff and several other people from CenturyLink to just talk about, have an initial discussion about next steps. We're not ready to bring anything back to this committee yet, but my hope is that we can kind of walk through some steps to put together a initial plan to bring to this committee to kind of ask questions, pick apart, poke holes in, just as an initial discussion starting point. It's not going to be a finished plan by any means, but I want us to have a conversation with something on the table to look at instead of just starting from a blank slate. So that's what we're doing right now, is we're going to be having some conversations, trying to get something together to bring to this users group, to have a discussion around, and maybe make modifications based on that. But I did want to let everyone know that we're having those conversations, and I want to make it a standing old business item so that we don't lose track of it going forward.
Thanks, Daryl. Matt, have anything to add?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. Well said.
Okay, Jennifer, I'll ask you as well.
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. Tracy asks, where is geospatial call routing implemented right now? Anybody on the call have an answer to that? I do not. Sorry, Tracy.
Yeah, I can talk towards that. Jeff, if you're okay with me talking towards that.
Certainly. Thank you.
Sure. So it is deployed in multiple places across the country. From a Lumen perspective, we have it deployed in South Dakota. That went live a couple of years back. Nebraska, we're in the midst of turning up that entire state. I can tell you from an Intrado, from a platform perspective, we've done it a whole bunch. Over 1,000 PSAPs from the various platforms that we support. So we're very comfortable with this. The last thing just to maybe break down, Daryl, without getting too much into the details yet, is that there are options. So when we say geospatial routing, a lot of the times that is combined with I3 and I3 call delivery. We've done this enough over the years that we understand that those don't always line up, that maybe a PSAP is ready for geospatial routing, but the call handling equipment, there's time or funding that it's not ready to do I3. So just maybe to put this crowd at ease, there are different transitionary steps where we can do geospatial call routing without having to change how we deliver it or anything on the CPE side. So those are things that I think Daryl will put together on paper, prepare, and say, here are the various things we could do to get you where you need to be.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Rich, what about California? Are they using geospatial routing yet?
It's hard to figure out what California is and the just being transparent, the information that comes out of there. From what I can tell, they are the way they're deploying it. They're kind of deploying it in a dual fashion, I think. Now, again, I know I'm being recorded here, so this is my understanding of it. I could be wrong. Is that they're deploying kind of PSAP by PSAP. They have a very low amount of PSAPs deployed at this point, and they're doing it but carrier by carrier. So that means the PSAP not only has to accept the new ESInet that may be geospatially routed, but they're also accepting any carrier that hasn't cut over or is fully I3. They have to also support the legacy ESInet. So what's different with our system is no matter what the carrier does on their side, we will convert it in our infrastructure. And once a PSAP goes I3, that's all they get is I3. Whether or not the carrier is legacy or not, we convert that to an I3 format and deliver it to the PSAP. So it's, through our experience, it's a lot cleaner than trying to maintain two different 911 systems, one legacy and one next gen. So, sorry, to get back to your question, Daryl, limited. I think one of the carriers that is doing it today, again, don't quote me, is T-Mobile, but I believe almost every other carrier is not delivering I3, and therefore T-Mobile's the only one doing geospatial routing in the ESInet, and everything else is routing legacy at this point. That is my understanding. It could be outdated or it could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's true.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, ideas about the geospatial call routing from anyone on the call? Okay. And I know you just brought it up, Daryl. Is there anything else on the parking lot?
Just to mention that in our discussions, there was some discussion of maybe when geospatial routing is offered as a tariff amendment, that text to 911 might also be bundled into that same thing. Nothing's been decided yet, but just wanted to let people know that CenturyLink let us know in our conversation that hasn't fallen off the radar, that they are still discussing that.
Okay, thanks, Daryl. Okay, next is new business, letter A. I think we've already spoken about.
Yep.
So we can just go past that. And then we have the busy rollover with no answer rollover arrangements, and that's Daryl.
So I think Kimberly's the one who brought this up to me, but I couldn't remember for sure, so I just put my name. This has to do with the fact that there's two different kinds of rollover. that, and PSAPs need to be aware of that if you have all of your concurrent sessions are busy and another 911 call comes in, that's one kind of rollover, and that will roll over to another PSAP, hopefully as you have designated to CenturyLink that you want it to roll over. But there's also another kind of rollover that happens if a call comes in and it rings for a certain period of time. If you've got a automatic call distribution system and it's going into a queue, it's probably not going to affect you. But if you don't use that type of system and it just continues to ring because you don't have enough call takers to answer, after a certain period of time, it will roll over to another PSAP. And that may be different than your busy rollover arrangement. And Kimberly, you can help me out if I'm getting any of this wrong, but I think part of the issue was that the time on the rollover for no answer was set really high, and that it was causing the phone to ring for an extended period of time before it finally rolls over. Kimberly, did I get all that right?
Yes. So the time threshold default for Intrado Lumen when they set it up is high. It's 2 minutes. So I was just encouraging everybody to revisit that to make sure that they have that set. If they're okay with 2 minutes, then that's what it is. But it was surprising. And then that default behavior for the that rollover at this IP selective router when all of your SIP sessions are full, there's a default behavior of fast busy where it's not rolling. So you can select, and you could have selected for that to not be delivered to your backup PSAP. So, and that was a report. What our action item was, Daryl, was to revisit the report in the Intrado online reporting system to see what those were statewide.
Joe, go ahead.
When we were, before the ESInet was deployed, there was a session we had with someone online from Minnesota, I believe it was, and how they had deployed the ESInet. And a lot of those people were having certain calls rolled to their admin lines. And I'm wondering, do we know which of those options that you were just talking about, they're rolling internally instead of to other PSAPs? And does that make
Again,
sense?
I'm not aware of anybody in Colorado setting it up to roll to a 10-digit line when we initially did the ESInet project. It should be rolling to their backup PSAP.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would warn that if anybody did do that, they're going to lose their Annie Alley information that's connected to that.
And are these like some of the options that people might not be aware of because there's a user guide, but we don't have access to it?
No, Joe, these are all options and we discussed them, and Lumen worked with us on the configurations PSAP by PSAP. For us, I was just surprised, and the PSAP I was working with in Jackson County was surprised based on just personnel turnover of how what their timer threshold was set to, of being the 2 minutes, and it would roll from one SIP session to the next SIP session, so a minute each, and then it would default roll to their backup PSAP. So that's 2 minutes of ring no answer. So the point last month or 2 months ago was I was just encouraging people to revisit how they set it up and make sure that if there's been turnover, that everyone's aware how your PSAP configurations are. But Daryl, I did get in online to try and run that report, and I think I just got frustrated and then I didn't revisit it again. I don't know if you had time to get in to run a report statewide to look at that, but Matt pointed it out last time that we did have access to that. I couldn't figure it out again.
Well, and Kimberly, I'll be honest too, that last time we talked about rollover arrangements, and this wasn't even about the no answer rollover, this was just the busy rollover. I found that part of the Intrado user portal to be very difficult to interpret. So maybe we can get somebody from Intrado to help us understand and maybe do a short presentation on the next users group call to show us how to read that and how to run that report at each PSAP.
And maybe in the meantime, we can have Introut just run it for the entire state, because I believe Cindy did that for us before. So we may be able to get that.
Okay. We'll reach out to Introut and see what we can get set up.
All right. Thank you, Daryl and Kimberly. Next, we have open discussion, questions and concerns from PSAP to Lumen. Hearing none, I'll go to open issues from Lumen to the PSAPs that need immediate action or follow-up.
This is Tracy.
Again, hearing. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say this is Tracy, and I don't have anything.
Okay. Thank you. Next is public comment. Any non-voting members would like to provide comments during this portion of the meeting?
This is Daryl. I know probably almost everybody on this call is on the task force email list, but just in case there are people who aren't, I wanted to point out that Jennifer Kirkland has joined our office. She will be the new 911 program manager. I will continue attending these meetings as well, but feel free to reach out to Jennifer. Her email address is just jennifer.kirkland@state.co.us. And we are thrilled, absolutely thrilled to have her on the team. So feel free to reach out to her with 911 issues, and she'll be taking over a lot of the work that I currently do related to the users group in the future.
All right. Thank you, Daryl, and congratulations, Jennifer.
And Beth's dog is very excited about that as well.
Matt, go ahead.
Sorry for a late response to questions from PSAPs to Lumen. It sounds like we had a pretty significant 911 outage night before last. Are you aware of that? And do you have any information for us about it in Montrose?
Daryl, were you aware of that?
I was not. Matt, if you have any details that you can send me, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. I learned about it during a PSAP board meeting yesterday. We're still collecting information from the PSAP. We'll be in touch. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Any other public comment?
Hi, this is Brian. I work with the Army in the National Capital Region. I was invited to the meeting, but I thought I'd take the opportunity to try to get some information about if anybody had anything to offer as far as established relationships between counties and Fort Carson specifically, and there's also the Pueblo depot. If there's this is definitely a little out of scope, but if there's anybody who can speak to that, I'm just kind of collecting information in this project where we will eventually upgrade NG911 systems at Army installations. If there are county representatives who are familiar with that. And finally, a little easier question. I was kind of interested in the ESInet architecture in Colorado. It sounds like there's one state ESInet, and that's what we're talking about right now. But yeah, also interested in that information.
Hi, Brian. This is Daryl Branson. I'm the telecom programs manager at the Public Utilities Commission. If you email me, I can let's set up a meeting. We can talk about this, and I can get you in contact with the local 911 authority contacts for Fort Carson's area as well as Pueblo. And my email address is Daryl, DARYL.Branson, BRANSON @state.co.us.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment? All right. Hearing none, I will go ahead and say that this meeting is adjourned at 10:51. Thank you all very much for your time, and we will see you next month. Don't worry, Beth. We all have dogs.
Right. Take care, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.